Call me crazy if you want, but I've never liked store-bought pesto.
That's crazy. And although it's not as crazy as store-bought pesto, my story still took me this long to work up the nerve to even try to talk about it. But it reminds me of my childhood, about how I grew up thinking that my mom and dad were married. And it wasn't until I was 13 years old that I found out that my mom and dad were never married. And my mom did not lose the suitcase that had all the photos of her wedding and my dad in it, because I grew up to this point thinking that I never saw my dad because my mom lost all the photos and I had no idea who my dad was. And then when I was 14 years old, as freshman in high school, my dad, who I'd never talked to or even knew the name of up until this point, reached out to me out of the blue to tell me that he was dying from cancer. And then my Korean mom, who even if I had like 104-degree temperature would just make me take a Tylenol and still send me to school, took me out of school for a week, and then we flew to Korea where I finally met my dad for the first time. So on the day that we have scheduled to meet my dad, we meet at the Lotte Hotel, which is like a pretty nice hotel in Seoul, South Korea, in the lounge area. And I'm sitting there with my mother when all of a sudden this guy walks up wearing sunglasses and a pretty flashy jacket with his assistant walking behind him. And the guy in the sunglasses obviously was my dad. And one of the first things he says to me, other than "너 좀 잠깐 보자," which means let me take a good look at you, is that his jacket alone is worth more than my whole wardrobe. And during the hour and a half that we were there, he didn't really say too much to me directly. He was mostly speaking to my mom the whole time, except to tell me how expensive his jacket was and that his family was one of the wealthiest families in the country, because I'm pretty sure he just wanted to impress me when I really just wanted to get to know my dad and for my dad to know me. And right before, towards the end, his assistant reminds him that he made my dad buy this random mask for me, I'm pretty sure at the Lotte Hotel gift shop, to give to me. And maybe because the mask is such an impersonal gift, but my dad's assistant then advises him that maybe he should take off his lucky golf bracelet that he was wearing to give to me. So my dad gives me that off of his wrist, as well as a cardboard Lotte Hotel coaster that he signed the back of. And then he gave me a check for, I forget if it was like $500 or $1,000, and then he told me that he was going to see me again the next day. So the next day rolls around and my mom tells me two things. The first thing is that my dad's wife canceled that check that he wrote me, and two, my dad couldn't make it because he was too busy with a business golf meeting. And then I never saw him ever again until I went to Korea again to attend his funeral right before the junior year of high school. And while we were in Korea for my father's funeral, my mom actually got an appointment with my father's mother, aka my grandmother, and then we went to her house to go meet her, at which point she didn't look at my mother one time or even say more than a word to me the entire time while we went there to pay respects to her directly. And then we went to my dad's funeral where my mom stayed outside and I went in by myself, and I was just a crying, bumbling fool child that no one knew who I was. Oh, by the way, right before I left, I signed my name in their guest book really big. Now, fast forward to last year when I was on the phone with my mom who lives in Korea, and I told her that I really needed to find my half-siblings. To which my mom replies with, "By the way, when I was visiting you last year, I wasn't sure if maybe at some time in the future after I die, you were gonna wanna find your half-siblings, so I took their names that were in the family registry and gave a copy to you and hid it in your room along with your other important documents." And in addition to that bombshell, it was on that phone call that I found out that my dad did not ditch me for a golf game for that second day, and in fact, he was forbidden by his wife to ever see me again. And for some reason, my mom was like, "You know what? I think it'll be less traumatic for my son if he thinks that his dad chose a golf game over him." And it was also on that phone call when I expressed how upset I was that my paternal grandmother didn't even acknowledge my existence when I was sitting there right in front of her, that my mom finally told me that when she and my grandma were alone, that my grandmother told her that she loves me and to make sure that my mom raises me well, but that she has to stay by her son's wife's family's side. And I guess that was another thing my mom, for some reason, thought that would be a less hurtful thing for me to not know. And if you thought the craziest part of it was over, fast forward to about 6 months ago when I saw a video by Stephanie Sue where she talks about chaebols, which was a term that I had heard for the first time. And when she was explaining what chaebols were, she literally listed my dad's family's company. So that's how I found out my dad's side of the family is a chaebol, which is just a Korean word for one of the wealthiest families in Korea. All that to say, I don't know if they want anything to do with me, but I've been searching for them my whole life. And I want to start out by finding my older half-sister. And this is the only information that I have of her. Her name is Seohee, and she was born in August of 1977, and she grew up around Fort Lee, New Jersey. And I don't know if she wants anything to do with me or if she even knows that I exist. But if I can get your help in trying to find my half-sister, that'd be really great. And I have 3 younger siblings after this, but I would like to start with my older sister. So if you know anyone or if this is you, I'd really appreciate it if you could reach out to me. But yeah, fuck store-bought pesto.